Thanks, Daryl. And how about our new state auditor, Mary? She's a rock star. And thanks to all you for getting up earlier than you may usually get up. But just think, 3 hours ago, Senator Grassley finished a 4-mile run. Has anyone here jogged with Senator Grassley? Raise your hand if you have. One. Raise your hand. Notice I didn't raise my hand at all. I'm not from Polk County originally, and I don't live here now, but I have spent a fair amount of time here. I spent the last 3 years of high school at Johnston, and I'm a graduate of Drake University. I'm from Van Meter. I can't assume all you know where that is, but it's in Dallas County, about 20 miles from here, nestled just south of the Raccoon River. The Iowa Veterans Cemetery is there. Many of you have probably gone there. If you haven't, you should check it out. And the Bob Feller Museum as well. I was born and raised there until I was 15. My brother and sister and I did pretty much those small town activities that many Iowans have done. Little League, Cub Scouts, 4-H, singing in the church choir. We did a lot of things small town kids do. We fished a lot for crappies and bluegills, hunted mushrooms, and shot squirrels with Daisy BB guns. I see Kathy here. My brother and I were paper boys for the Des Moines Register, Kathy. And we worked a few summers on farms. Van Meter is my home today. Not a lot has changed. We still don't have a stoplight. In kindergarten and 12th through 12th grade, I'll go to the same school in the same building. Van Meter is a place where neighbors look after each other. They love God. They fear God. They just want a better life for their kids. They want a better life for their kids than they had. So they work hard. They don't complain much. They do what's right. They know right from wrong, the truth from a lie. And they know when someone's feeding them a bunch of malarkey. They love their neighbor, their town. They love Iowa. They love their country. Van Meter is a community, like many towns in Iowa, where folks look after one another and serve one another. And it's in this spirit of service that I headed east after college and wanted to work for Senator Grassley. I admired his public service and wanted to serve my fellow Iowans too. My experience for working for Senator Grassley as his chief of staff put me in touch in the deepest way with my fellow Iowans. While I've had an up-close view of the ongoings of Capitol Hill and the Senate, I've always kept that Iowa outside perspective. Every day I headed into the office and was surrounded by staff from Iowa, folks from Lamar's, Keokuk, Dubuque, Atlantic, Davenport, and some guy from New Hartford. We'd work together, advocate for Iowans, advancing Senator Grassley's principles, and emulating his work ethic. We battled the incompetence and arrogance of the federal bureaucracy on behalf of Iowans. Sometimes it was the IRS, sometimes the USDA, the FCC, the Social Security Administration, and then there was the IRS again. When you're on the phone every day talking with Iowans and meeting every day with Iowans, you really get to understand your people and your state. Their frustrations, their joys, their problems and solutions. And when you hear some of their stories, it makes your heart break. And you want to work all that much harder for them. My experience working for Iowans in the Senate and understanding the federal issues and the Senate, it allows me to hit the ground running should I be elected to the United States Senate. I'm running to help to make sure the next generation, your kids, grandkids, my nieces and nephews, have a shot at the American dream like we had, and our parents had before us, and our grandparents. You see, my great-great-grandparents, on both sides of the family, came from Ireland and Germany, the Youngs and the Split-Gerbers. They farmed and worked the earth to make a better life, but not just for themselves, but for the next generation. I see three deficits that are getting in the way to the American dream. The budget deficit, the jobs deficit, and the deficit of accountability. It's astounding that our debt is tickling $17 trillion. It's embarrassing. And we're going to hand that off to our next generation. And no party is without fault here, folks. I wish President George W. Bush would have taken the power of his pen to veto some bills. The deficits and debt are out of control. And President Obama has pretty much doubled the debt over President Bush. Congress spends like drunken sailors on both sides of the aisle. I'll be an equal opportunity watchdog conservative in working to reduce out of control spending, regardless of which party holds the White House or Congress. We tinker around with sequestration and across the board cuts, but it's not enough. It's time to roll up our sleeves and work to get a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution over the finish line. 49 states, 49, all except Vermont, have requirements to balance the budget, including Iowa. So the will of the people is there. It now needs to become the will of Congress. We have an excellent chance at regaining the Senate majority. History and our conservative principles are on our side. We need to make sure we send Tom Latham and Steve King back to Congress, and we need to field strong candidates in the 1st and 2nd District. We can win those seats. If we can capture the Senate, my friend and mentor, Senator Grassley, is poised to be the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And that committee has jurisdiction over the balanced budget amendment. I know that it's a priority for Senator Grassley if we can get the majority. I'll work with him and anyone else, Republican or Democrat, to sponsor and move that amendment forward through that committee. It's time for a balanced budget amendment. It's the greatest legacy we can leave our next generation. And we can't be complacent with our unemployment rate at 7.6%, with an underemployment rate of almost 14%. This jobs deficit cannot be the new norm. While Iowa is faring better than most states, thanks to the leadership of Governor Branstad and the hard work of Iowans, we can do better too. How? Our economy needs tax reform more than we ever have. We need a fairer, flatter, and simpler tax code for individuals and corporations. We need a tax code that can be understood and has certainty and diminishes the power and the influence of the IRS. We have one of the highest corporate tax rates in the world. It's unbelievable. We need to lower the corporate tax rate dramatically. And we need to take a look at all the credits, deductions, and exemptions. They need to be on the table. And we need to make this new tax code permanent. Permanency gives family businesses, small businesses, large businesses, manufacturers, entrepreneurs, and risk takers certainty. And certainty and simplification gives us a better understanding of the rules on the playing field to allow entrepreneurs and job creators the ability to invest our economy and grow it, and make the business decisions with the capital they've been unsure on how to spend. Certainty in the tax code gives them confidence to unleash the capital and spirit to grow. And growth means jobs, good-paying jobs, high-paying jobs. And we need to do all we can to repeal, slow down, or defund the biggest headache in our economy, Obamacare. Obamacare is causing employers to cut full-time employees to part-time. Employers don't want this, but their back is against the wall in many ways. Because for a lot of employers, it's a matter of survival. And let's pass that dang Keystone Pipeline. There's no excuse to not pass it. It produces good-paying jobs, helps with our energy independence and national security. And finally, there's that deficit of accountability and trust. The trust in government and its leaders is at an all-time low. It's the lowest level in history. It wasn't too long ago when we could count the scandals on one hand. Now we've switched over to two. I hope we don't have to use our toes. Fast and Furious, the IRS targeting those who just aren't quite in line with the administration's ideology. The AP phone record scandal, Benghazi, Health and Human Services Secretary Sebelius browbeating corporations and businesses to pay for Obamacare. Our government's out of control. It's time for an intervention. Attorney General Eric Holder, he needs to go. Secretary Hillary Clinton lacks taking responsibility. We need a special counsel investigating the IRS. And the IRS needs to have its power diminished and not expanded under Obamacare. Thank goodness for the right of Congress to perform oversight with its ability to investigate these matters. Without it, we may never know a lot of this. And thank goodness for whistleblowers and those that expose some of these egregious actions by our federal government. I understand how to conduct oversight and investigations. I learned from the master. And in the Senate, I can hit the ground running and get right to work doing so. As my boss and many others like to say, sunshine is the best disinfectant. And transparency brings shame, and shame brings accountability. Heads need to roll. I'm not quite ready to bring back the guillotine. We can win the Senate race in 2014. I wouldn't have gotten into this if I didn't think so. Congressman Braley is beatable. He's vulnerable. He's not as well known as popular as folks think, or even he thinks. Even in his own district. He has a very liberal record that is out of step with everyday Iowans, even more liberal than Tom Harkin. Whether it's helping Nancy Pelosi carry the torch for Obamacare, voting against the Keystone Pipeline, supporting the so-called stimulus bill that even the president said wasn't quite shovel-ready, cash for clunkers, the list goes on. We have a real opportunity to win this seat, folks. If we can elect one conservative senator like Senator Grassley, we can elect two in Iowa. I have experience in working for Iowa and in the Senate. I understand the Senate. I understand Iowans. And I can hit the ground running for Iowa. I have the leadership experience and courage to take on the tough issues and be a watchdog conservative, regardless of who is in power. We can take on the budget deficit, the jobs deficit, and the deficit of accountability. We need more Iowa common sense in Washington, D.C. We need folks who will do what they say and say what they do. I left my dream job with the goal of taking my public service to a higher level for Iowans. I'm campaigning full-time, east, west, north, south. I have a strong, experienced team in place. I'm committed to this race. And more importantly, I am committed to you. I am committed to Iowa. I know we're almost a year away, but I'm asking for your support in June of 2014. If you haven't already, go to youngforiowa.com. Follow me on Twitter at youngforiowa. I can follow myself. But thanks a ton. We can win this race. God bless. I appreciate all of you, and I ask you for your support. Thanks.